Welcome back to Backroomconvos. I'm your host with the most, Lesego M, Daddy Ready Port, aka Shoot Your Shot, and maybe you might get a chance to call me Daddy like Cairo. Listen, if you are a fan of ports, stay tuned because you might like what we cooking. Today we have a lot to unpack as always. I didn't release an afternoon episode, but I released one. Hope you enjoyed that one as well. Do let me know in the comment section what you thought of yesterday's episode, and don't forget to follow, rate the podcast to get a notification for each and every time we drop a new episode. It's a brand new day. It's a brand new day, brand new music, brand new stories to cover, entertainment galore. So yeah, the first place to start, yeah. So song of the day. Song of the day is Star Sign by AKA. I'm surprised that it's Star Sign. This song has been on my head all morning since I got up, So it is the song of the day for today, just for that reason. When I was doing prep, for the podcast, obviously, for this specific episode, I realized when I went to Touch My Blood doesn't have a lot of numbers, guys. Touch My Blood doesn't have a lot of numbers, because now I'm looking at the numbers for Star Sign and they're very low. And I'm like, oh, but even when the album came out, I still didn't feel the album. It's just now that, I listened to the album and I found tracks like these, Star Sign and Touch My Blood and Beyonce. Those are like the songs that I listen off of Touch My Blood, I know there's a song called Touch My Blood which featured Cairo as well. Cairo is like AKA's daughter. And if you listen to my intro tag, I also have something about AKA, I could be Danny like Kai, so also that it came from that, So I wasn't a big fan of AKA because of what I think. I don't know if I've had the privilege of talking about this, rest in peace to AKA. But I was never really a big fan of the kicking of fans off stage. You remember there was a time where AKA kicked the fan off stage, and with that entire saga with cares and like parents ended up being involved, I was like, I'm not sure. Like, this is not what I stand for. Like, I was raised to be this person, and he might have had these reasons, but like I've never been the person who thought I'd follow someone who does the opposite of who I am. And like, there's people who can like find reason as to why AKA did that. I get it. You do have your reasons, and I do have mine as to why I wasn't a big fan. And unfortunately, those are my reasons. And shout out to him. He did a lot of great work. He won award with the latest album that he released, and there's a feature Lemonade there. A lot of people for the album being released, they released Lemonade featuring Nasty C, and Nasty, I remember saying that, there was a song that never actually made it to one of AKA's album before, like the album that he dropped now. So he was saying that, I didn't think AKA was going to put the verse of Lemonade in his verse of Lemonade in there. So he was just surprised when the song came out and he was a part of that album. He's like, oh, that's so dope. And surprising enough, people like that part where he's like, a 10 in my lap, Maradona. That entire, I remember it was going ham on, was it Instagram? No, it wasn't Instagram, it was TikTok. It was going mad on TikTok. Everybody was bumping it, and it turned out to be a good song, and everybody started like following and playing it. I still listen to that song even now, So shout out to him, man. He has an amazing ear for music, and if you get to listen to the modern day artist, AKA has his signature sound, like how I think his taste in music. And if you listen to a catalog, there's music that he was releasing in before Touch My Blood, 2015, 16. Then AKA was fire. And I think we could say like the sound between, I think one of like the collaborations that are most underrated in South Africa, it's a collaboration between JR and AKA. My brother. That collaboration between those two artists, I think it's so underrated because nobody speaks about it. We get the fact that, Anati is so nice. Shout out to Anati as well. He did a song with Pastor Rhymes. And I haven't heard the song, but I've heard Uguti. There's a song that they have together, him and Pastor Anachi's been dope. And I've loved so many tweets about him. Even Saga was like so dope, and like many other beats that he released and rapped or like became like a part of the songs, singing or like hook or whatever the case may be. He's always like been the artist. But I think when don't forget to pray came out, don't forget to pray. Yeah. Do you know that God is on the way? That was a dope album. You could hear a lot of Anati. The DNA for sure, it was like 80% Anati, and it was like, AKA was consuming a lot of the music. I think one thing I think a lot of people don't actually pay attention to is how AK was also a student to some of the people he worked with. You listen to the collaboration he did with Costa Teach. A lot of people, including Chris XL, was saying that collaboration sounded like AKA was a backup singer for Costa Teach. This is him, President, it's not me. And I beg that by saying this, Uguti. Sometimes, as a leader, you can lead from the back and let people do it. And you're like, no, this is the sound. Don't overlap, don't do it. Let's be here. So he's leading from the back. He's learning, he's adjusting. Because it's a different generation to that of his with Bokes, where hip-hop was like at this peak when they came up. I remember one of the lines that Kes released to sing AKA is like, AKA Mukari Scooter. Like I was like, oh, that's a dope line. Like a lot of people never hit that line, but yeah, that line from Cass is like, oh, that is a line. I liked it, So AKA had a lot of bars, and there's Composure, obviously, that's also an amazing, song. So shout out to AKA for that. Shout out to our God. And the reason we are talking about this is that the same reason I think Uguti maybe Touch My Blood, this particular song, maybe the numbers in YouTube are different as well. I didn't check the numbers in YouTube, but it's Spotify, like the song Starsigns sitting at 4,984. I'll repeat it again, I didn't make a mistake. 4,984, and this is on Spotify alone. So now it had me questioning. I know it wasn't a great album, or like, I didn't expect it to be as low as I see it now on Spotify. I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh, okay, AK even gets, because these are like numbers for upcoming artists now, like that's what the numbers that this song has now, it's numbers you would expect from 25k, even 25. I don't think he makes these numbers anymore. He's a bit bigger now. I don't think, but for an upcoming artist, you'd expect to, an upcoming artist should get these numbers. But I guess it just goes to say something about the album. You could see whenever like I think album sequencing, there's something called album sequencing, where like songs are being put in a certain way. You could see this song makes better off, to be a song that's being released prior to the album, or a lead single to the album, like sequencing comes to play at how the entire album is perceived. You look at artists such as Kendrick Lamar, right? So he has a tradition with like releasing the Hearts Part 1, 2, 3, 4, and the one he just did recently with the Nipsey Hussle. I'm not sure if it's 3 or 4 or like, the current one. But he does that, prior like releasing an album, and you can tell he's coming for hits, like you don't know what to expect, but he went hard on this, and this is not even an album, it's just to Bambisa, and you see that it kind of does give you a perspective of what you're looking at. Like overall, it's like, oh, okay, now I can tell where the headspace of Kendrick Lamar is at this point by just listening to this project. Tell me if I'm lying. He released that Hard Part 5. He did all that thing, the morphing into Nipsey Hussle, the morphing into, Kanye West. He did a lot of morphing in that video. The content, amazing. And a lot of people liked it as well. The artistry is insane in that album. I won't lie to you. The artistry is insane in that. And he releases the Big Steppers, Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, and a lot of what's being on the Hard Part 5 contributed. Like, I was like, oh, okay, now it makes sense. I listened to that, and you listen to the whole album, it's like self-development, self-healing, and like a lot of us, I've said this before, with the music that's being put out, right? So with the music that's being put out, and there's certain music we like, it's not that it's bad music, it's maybe the music is so good that the truth that's being spoken about in that song, not a lot of people want to confront. You know, the same way I say to you guys, I had an opportunity, I don't remember which day it was, maybe last year or early this year. It was like I was sitting and I wanted to watch a movie, and I was like, oh, let me just, binge on some Pursuit to Happiness, the Pursuit to Happiness by Will Smith. Jaden was also there. Shout out to them. And I was like, I can't. I literally watched the first 15 minutes, 20 minutes of that, and I was like, I can't. It's unbearable. I don't know, Guti. Is it because I relate to the story so much, or if I'm not ready because of what I'm going through in life? And I'm like, why? Like, the answer is why. And it brought me back to the conversation that Tyla was in, being, was to what the conversation that Tyla had, basically, Tyla, the creator. So he was being interviewed somewhere in Paris, and he said, like, that album is so great that a lot of the truth that's being said in that album, not a lot of people want to confront. And I'm like, oh, that's so powerful. Because now, if he says that, I look at that and I'm like, even in the movies, it applies. And I didn't look at it like that. Until I listened to that interview with Tyler, and I was like, oh, this makes a lot of sense now as to why I couldn't intake that. I was like, oh, I'm not ready to confront it, to say, oh, this is the situation, or whatever that's being said. I was like, oh, that's so profound. It's for him to even see that and be like, oh, that's a certain level of healing that a lot of people and fewer people are ready to confront, to say, yeah, there's truth in this, and that's why I appreciate so much of this. It's not an album for everybody, but it has its target audience. You can be a Kendrick Lamar fan and still not be a fan of that album, and the truth simply being that what is being said in that album, you are not ready to confront in your life. And that's the simple truth within that, that's the simple truth with that album, That's why you get people like, shout out to Academics, who was like, Mr. Morale was having lesser numbers, and you're like, yeah, not a lot of people were anticipating that Kendrick could take that route of self-healing and, self-introspection. Nobody anticipated that. Everybody was still on the Kendrick from the Damn album, Kendrick from Section 85, and we were all there. We were like, yeah, So when he released that, it was like, oh, snap. Even though with the growth of Kendrick Lamar, we've always had a dynamic where as far as the bar of the album, Damn is so much different from the album before. And when he released Section 85, shout out to Rigor Morton. That's one of my favorite tracks in Section 85. Rigor Mortis. So even though there's always a bar, but with this particular album, in my opinion, I think as much as there's this gap that he create, and it says, that's the album. And I think with this album, he created that out of the trajectory of all the albums, and you have this album and this album and this album, but he did this going that direction. And that nobody really saw coming, So I appreciate him for that in the music. And yeah, I don't know how we got to this conversation, by the way, but that's all I had to say about it. I know I'm a passionate speaker when it comes to music and everything. And, I think I wasn't supposed to be even speaking about the music now, but I have so much music, and, I love the culture so much that, whenever there's a chance to speak on it, I just, I'm a passionate speaker about that. So like I do apologize. I didn't cover what I was supposed to cover for this minute. But yeah, Touch My Blood was released as an album in 2018. The song that I said it's the song of the day, Star Science. It's 5 minutes 48 seconds long and currently has 4,984 listeners. Disappointing, right? So yeah, I do know. So I want us to touch base kancane, and I'm for sure going to record the second part of today's episode right after this. But just to give you a highlight of what we are going to touch on today's episode, I want us to touch about the FIFA's men's coach. We're going to talk about that. Lil Nas X, you remember yesterday I did say I'm going to give you my outlook of the Lil Nas X situation. We're going to talk about Coachella, going to talk about Coachella as well. We are going to talk about the prince, King Harry. It's King now because Queen Elizabeth has passed on. So it's King Harry III. We'll talk about him as well. We'll talk about De Bruyne, the Premier League. We'll talk about Club Shay. We'll talk about that. And I think this one we can just put it out there. Shout out to Renee, the visuals by Master KG. Hit 10 million views on YouTube. So shout out to Nkosazana daughter and Master KG for that one. But I don't think Uguti the song was bigger than Iplani. Iplani was God sent, man. And I still think Uguti. And I say God sent because it's the word that I took from who Saul. I was watching Podcasting Shield just minutes ago and was saying that song is amazing. So we're going to talk about Dojo. Dojo is an alcohol distribution company which owns companies such as Seawalk and some tequila brands, of which they were in collaboration with TDComs who sued them and they settled the lawsuit. So we are going to talk about that when we come back. I'm your host with the most, Lesego M, Daddy Report, aka Shoot Your Shot, and maybe you might get a chance to call me Daddy like Cairo. Let's meet after the break. Cheers. Welcome back to Backroomconvo. I'm your host at the most, Lesego M, Daddy Report, aka Shoot Your Shot, and maybe you might get a chance to call me Daddy like Cairo. Listen, if you're a fan of ports, stay tuned because you might like what we're cooking on today's episode. And before we went on an ad break, we were talking about aka Kendrick Lamar and the comparison between the two and the trajectory that Kendrick took when it comes to like Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, and the album still being a classic, and how that relates to AKA or the parallel of AKA's album Touch My Blood. So the song of the day is Star Signs by AKA, which came from an album called Touch My Blood, which was released 2018. The song is 5 minutes 48 seconds long, and it has 4,984 numbers, So yeah, very low numbers, but yeah. So we'll talk about it. We spoke about it actually. I won't touch on it already. I won't touch on it again. So I gave a shout out to Renee, the visuals by Master KG and featuring Nkosazana daughter. That music video did about 10 million on Spotify, not on YouTube. I'm sorry. So it was announced now. So yeah, we have a lot to touch on. So now I want to start here. So a guy came out, who was recording a clip for Kanye, a clip that was filmed that is 40 minutes long. It was released. It hasn't been released. I don't know if it has been released or it hasn't been released, but it will be released. So you remember we touched on a story about Kanye saying he did apologize in Hebrew. He sent out a text in Hebrew in his Instagram, apologizing for those anti-Semitic comments that he had put out about Jewish people. And he did apologize, and now he still felt like, I don't know if he still felt like, or if Kanye is calculated as well. You won't know if this is genuine or not. It's just one of those things that he's using to promote the album, you wouldn't know. So apparently there's a 45-minute long apology from Kanye West, which was filmed, and according to the source, they say this was supposed to be long dropped, so it was meant to be long dropped, and I think it was supposed to be even dropped before the text was dropped on social media, the Hebrew text that was dropped on social media. So this video was supposed to be dropped. So they didn't mention the guy who said this, Uguti, the name and everything. So they didn't say the name of that guy. So, but this is what I know about the album. The cameraman, rather. So this is what they say about the album. The album is coming out on the 9th of February. And I think knowing Kanye, he wants to create hype around this. He might be the one who leaked this and say, go to the press and tell them, there's a 40-minute apology that I recorded, and might not even release it, and just, trying to get to our minds or be a part of the conversation before the 9th of February. He wants to be a part of the conversation. Kanye's apology, he's released an apology in April. He released a 40-minute long apology for his anti-Semitic comments, that he made last year. And boom, Vouchers is out. Because for those of you who know, I don't think till this point we knew when the date of Vouchers is. Like, as far as like the album Vouchers, we didn't know the date of when it's going to be released. And the album is like an album between Kanye and Tyla, and there's a whole bunch of people who are featured on those albums, including Offset in that. I think Chris Brown is also a part of that, because on that last listening session, I think it was in Vegas, Miami, I'm not sure. So they were a part of that performance in that club. It was in Miami. So after that dinner or something, they had an art gallery or something that was held in Miami somewhere. So after that, they did go out and perform in that club. And, a lot of those people, including North, was performing on stage, in the pre-party or like listening session of that album. North also performed in there. Who else performed? I don't remember who else performed. So knowing Kanye, that might be a calculated move to build up hype around the album before it comes out on the end of album. If that is not enough, he will push back the album to March and create something. And you remember the last album he released, he started like beefing with Drake, and there was a huge hype. And he did the whole like Mercedes listening party session, and like people got to that point. They're like, yeah, we're waiting, until people were just tired of like asking. They're like, dude must just, do whatever, because we can't now. We've waited, and dates are being cancelled and don't. There was sleeping at the Mercedes-Benz stadium, So I think Kevin Hart and Snoop, they released a video talking about him coming out from underneath the, to watch a game, wearing that stocking on the head, on the head, and they were making fun of that. So he might also, like, my point is, he might try to build up, so he's trying to build up some hype around the album that's coming out on the 9th, and it's possible that he might move there again, he might move the date again, and I don't think it's by mistake that this is being leaked or has been leaked on TMZ, because this is like news from TMZ that just came out as we speak, about them. I just saw it now. So yeah, tell me what you think about this Kanye situation, and if you think this is a strategy that's a part of the album rollout, like it did with Donda, sleeping at the Mercedes-Benz, creating a whole vibe and listening session, And over the years, even with like even with the album, I'm not sure. Even when he released the album where he had like people like Lil Yachty as part of like the fashion models, and he gave Young Thug the aux to rock his new music. And I'm like, yeah, this is like the Kanye we know, who's into fashion, and like he's using every moment to like, rail people into like what he's trying to create. I think he's trying to create a moment for that album. He's trying to create a moment before that album is being released, and like possibly get higher numbers as well. So yeah, talking about artistry and music, another artist that I wanted to talk about is Lil Nas X. So I did like speak on Lil Nas X on the previous episode, saying Gucci, Lil Nas X might be doing this. This move is calculated, and I gave out my reasons the other time, and I said maybe it might. But each and every day I see whatever he's doing on the internet and where it comes from, it kind of like validates the theory that I have. And the theory was, some people said he was a marketing genius, or his team is a marketing genius, because he released, the video where he was twerking for the devil, right? There was that video. For those of you who haven't checked that video out, this is a crazy video he released. He was twerking for the devil. And I made a comparison of him and Doja Cat, and how Doja Cat portrayed a message in that, and we lost it. We didn't get the message he was trying to get, or majority didn't get the message. And we also listened or gave Lil Nas' music video a review to say, these are like the same videos that speak about the darker side or the devil, but one is giving out perspective and one is just embracing or appreciating the darker side, which is like the Lil Nas X side, and I think he's over the years with like this thing of pronouns, the culture, the flag culture, the flag community was giving him hype, and he had that behind him, and he didn't care, ego, pride, and he started being, I think, in my opinion, he started being underheaded, and he's not humble, I think, in my opinion. And now he's released a song called J Christ, which in the music video there were people who were morphed into people like Oprah Winfrey, Kanye West, and Tyla Swift was also morphed in there, and there were people with this cross, and there was just a lot happening, just speaking about the theory that's being given out about Christ, the stage where he lifted dead, and how it was being lifted dead inside. If you haven't watched that movie, go watch it out. So he was doing that in the music video. So a lot of people didn't like it. They were like, no, why is Lil Nas doing this? Like, you can't do this. Blasphemy, there's blasphemy. It's blasphemy, and you can't do this. This is Christ, and don't. So a lot of people were angry by that. And I was like, oh, okay, so this is where the genius part comes in. For those of the people who were saying this is genius. So he did that, he did this, and now he wants to change, obviously, the trajectory of his brand. He's seen, obviously, I've used the LGBTQ plus community, and I got to milk it, and now that is not relevant now, and I need to find another way of, marketing myself or putting myself out there, and still having support from people. And, he's like, okay, the strategy is release something that's different from the previous music video, which was either different or like not a music video that's different from what you were doing there with like Taking for the Devil. He released something that's, opposite from that. He released the music video of J Christ. People hated. He's a part of the conversation. That's the start, right? That's the start. So now, after that is being released, he came out and said, yo, guys, I'm so sorry for everything that I've done, and I was not in the right headspace, and, I hope that, boom, boom, boom. It's not really an apology. It's just that's a vague apology, it's not being specific. It's not an apology. That those ladies' apologies, it's one of those apologies that he was giving out. It was like, it's an apology. I don't know if people accepted that, and some maybe started following back because of that. And that gave him a room to say, okay, guys, since you forgave me, this is the new Lil Nas X. We are revamping the brand, and this is the approach. And I'm like, if this was against the label, if this was the move that he's been making, we're against whatever, or like it was taking away from the money that the label is making from him, the label was not going to support it. They saw the strategy, they calculated, they saw, maybe he has a point, let's make it. Because now, ask me, why is Billboard the one that's, communicating everything Lil Nas X? Who's the owner of Billboard? I don't know who owns Billboard. I'll just check. I'm like, why is Billboard talking about Lil Nas so much, why is he talking on his behalf and like cliche, like a lot of the things, man, he was saying, it's like, oh, now I get it. Why is Billboard supporting this? Why is Billboard supporting this? Because if it goes against what Billboard stands for, why? Like, and I'm like, why is he getting media coverage for the things that people don't want to see in the forefront? And, I'm like, why? And I'm like, maybe labels are paying the Billboard to represent some of these things there to say, okay, we are trying to shift the landscape of the audience, Lil Nas X, and this is the approach we want, and this is how much we're willing to pay for that to happen. So I think that's what's happening in media. He's saying this, he gets media coverage. I wonder if they didn't support it. They were not gonna back anything. It was gonna be shelved. He was going to be shelved. I'm telling you, they were not gonna take it if this was not gonna bring them money. So now this publicity, they see this thing might work, and they are willing to fund it, and that's what they're doing now. And now I'm more than sold with it. That's the case as far as like Lil Nas X and like they're changing or rebranding. This is the direction they're using or the approach they're taking to rebrand Lil Nas X outside of like the demonic or the Christ-like, identity that he is trying to pull out, or the personas, the public personas he was portraying in all those music videos. So now they're moving away from that, and the right strategy is to apologize. It's to apologize at the time when people are not looking for an apology. So he did that very nice. He's going to find this center and release one of the nicest music videos that's not, demonic or, about the God or God. I think that's what's going to happen from now. So, yeah, do let me know what you think about my opinion and that. And what's your opinion? Do leave that in the comment section. I'm your host at the most, Lesego M, Dead Report, aka Shoot Your Shot, and maybe you might get a chance to call me Daddy like Cairo. So yeah, guys, I know I was supposed to cover a lot of things in this episode, of which I didn't, but on the episode that follows this, I am going to cover some of the things that I didn't cover. And I did say with you, I have to give you the owners of Billboard. So the founder of Billboard is William Donaldson and James. So those are the founders. So I don't know like the correlation or like how they work with companies or major distribution companies or Universal, Warner Bros. Or Sony Music. I don't understand the relationship, but there is definitely for sure a relationship between all those people. So yeah, do let me know what you think on the comment section. I'm your host at the most, Lesego M, Daddy Pod, aka Shoot Your Shot. Maybe you might get a chance to call me Daddy like Cairo. So yeah, I think we've reached the end of this episode. I'm about to give you the book of the day, which, yeah, I didn't read this book because I'm not yet done with like the psychology of money. I'm still reading that. I haven't read it in like 2 days, but yeah, I'm going to get to it. So on Goodread, these are I haven't gave out the name. So the name of the book is Healing Developmental Trauma. How early trauma affects self-regulation, self-image, and the capacity of relationship. I'll repeat this. This sounds like an interesting book. Healing Development Trauma. How early trauma affects self-regulation, self-image, and the capacity for relationship. Yeah, this is an amazing header for a book. The title, it's an amazing title for a book. It's interesting. It sounds interesting. So shout out to them for that. So on Google or on Goodread, it ranks 4.2 out of 5, which is an amazing grade. It's an amazing review. On Benny's and Noble's, 5 out of 5. It's a good book. It speaks on PTSD. I think I see something about PTSD, a clear guidance as well. I see clear guidance. So it's a self-help book, the way I see it. So it's by Lawrence Hina and Elaine Napier. I think that's how we call it in the accent. Napier. So the book was originally released in 2012. They didn't give out the date of when exactly the month and the day it was released. So yeah, do let me know what you think about that in the comment section, or if you've read the book, just give us a minor review of it. Just say review in the comment section and we'll pick that comment and maybe you'll be featured in one of the episodes that we do in the podcast. Let's meet later on in another episode of Backroom Convos with Lesego M. Cheers.